Give you a little bit of in the news and tell you about the New World Order. A lot of things happening. By the way, let me just give this as a postscript. How many of you watched any of the proceedings of the Congress today? Well, so here's what I took in. I got to see Adam Schiff, and pretty pathetic, to be honest with you. Let me tell you why he's there. Some people get confused. So the articles were marched over through the statutory hall by Congress, members of Congress. Normally, that is bipartisan. If they're going to impeach someone, they will have people that are managers, they call them. They'll actually proceed and bring those over. It's a big procession called the engrossment procession or engrossment celebration. And then those managers stay, and they are in the Senate. They are addressing the Senate. Usually, there's Democrats and Republicans in impeachment. This is all Democrats. Adam Schiff was one of the managers that talked today. Once they're done, and they'll say anything they can say, there's no rebuttal. Once they're done, remember they're talking to the Senate, that's the representatives. Once they're done, then the Republicans will be able to talk to the Senate. So, and then they'll go through the trial and proceedings if they bring witnesses in. So if you're watching it right now, don't waste your time. Wait until the Republicans start to talk, because Adam Schiff is just going, and the rest will just go around in circles and tell us the same things they've been pounding for days and weeks. So it's pretty pathetic when you think about it. I'll comment more as it gets a little bit further down. Let me tell you a couple of things that are pretty shocking. You know, I tell you this, and most churches, most people don't hear these things. You get to hear them a lot. I hope we don't get complacent in hearing these things, because some of the stuff I'm telling you is pretty unbelievable when it comes to prophecy. Listen to this one. Amazon's pay by hand, fast tracking the mark of the beast. That's what you see up there. Now Amazon, you remember, or at least you know, is the largest retailer in the world. And so when they do something, it's going to catch on pretty quick. If anyone has the power, money, and influence to persuade people to accept a new form of payment systems for commerce, it's Amazon. Amazon is in the early stages of developing a technology that essentially turns your hand into a credit card. So I'm not going to read it all to you. I've read this and I understand what's going on. But if you have a new credit card, here's what you can do with your credit card. How many of you have one that you can just tap it? How many of you have that? How many do not know what I'm talking about? Okay, there's new credit cards out right now. We had one credit card compromised. So we ordered a new one, and it has a tap. With that little chip that's there, you can take it to a spot, and if it has the reader, you tap it, and you don't have to put your credit card in. Well, that's the step leading to this step. Amazon's going to take that little chip, and they're going to put it right now in this part of the hand. Although they have been talking with MasterCard, JP Morgan, Chase, Wells Fargo, and Synchrony Financial that are expressing interest in this to chip their employees and to provide the chips for people that already have cards. And they want it in between the thumb and between the finger. It takes 20 seconds to put in. It's painless. It has a potential to actually grow into your skin. It cannot be taken back out. Your actual cells will grow through it. It has a mesh, and you'll have all your information on it. So as you go someplace, all you have to do, instead of tapping your card, not a big step, instead of tapping your card, you just tap your hand. And so they have big companies that are lined up. Some have like 200,000 employees that they're not telling us their name that are already on board. And so here's the big problem. So we have a lot of people saying, well, it's going to cut down on theft. It's because you won't have to compromise. Nobody's going to compromise your hand. You're not going to have MasterCard calling up and say, somebody compromised your hand. So nobody's going to be able to do that. It'll stop all of that fraud. There's billions of dollars that are spent on compromised cards every day, really. And so they won't happen. But here's the big problem. Privacy advocates are saying, well, it's going to take away our privacy, and basically it's going to force us to use our hands instead of anything else. And they said, how are you going to implement that to 200,000 employees? And they said, without people, because it's voluntary, without people going against it. And they said, it's pretty simple. We'll tell them, if you don't take it, you don't have a job. Now you'll start seeing the mark of the beast getting stronger and stronger and stronger. Is that the mark of the beast? No. The mark of the beast is something that happens like that, with your allegiance sworn to some entity, some person or some being, and you have to deny Christ. So that's not there yet. It's not going to happen tomorrow. But the process is much, much closer than we ever thought it would be. And so that came out today, and they said they're going to implement this, Amazon, by the end of 2020. That's this year. So it's on a fast pace. Let me give you a couple other things that are going on here by the same privacy and really marking people. This one's pretty interesting. We've heard for years and years that robots are going to take our jobs over, and everybody said, oh, they're not going to do that. Well, they actually are going to do that. The robots are coming, and they are going to take over millions of jobs. It says, for the most of human history, the wealthy have needed the poor to do work that is necessary to run their business and make them even wealthier. In this day and age, we like to call ourselves employees, but in reality, we are their servants, and that is the truth. No difference than employees sometimes than serfs or proletariats of ancient days. Some of us may be more well paid than others, but the vast majority of us are expending our best years serving their enterprises so that we can pay the bills. Unfortunately, the paradigm is rapidly changing, and many of the jobs that humans are doing today will be done by robots in the not too distant future. In fact, millions of human workers have already been displaced, and we don't realize this, but I'm going to share something with you you'll probably be shocked at. Experts are warning that the job losses are likely to greatly accelerate in the years to come. Competition with technology is one of the reasons why wage growth has been so stagnant over the past couple of decades. The only way it makes sense for an employer to hire you is if you can do a job less expensively than some form of technology can do it. As a result, close to 2/3 of the jobs that have been created in the United States over the past couple of decades have been low-wage jobs, and the middle class is being steadily hollowed out. But as robots continue to become cheaper and more efficient, even our lowest-paying jobs will be vanishing in enormous numbers. Walmart, which is the world's largest retailer, will add shelf-scanning robots to 650 more U.S. stores by the end of the summer. Listen to this, bringing its fleet to 1,000. They have robots right now that work in Walmart, whether you've seen them or not. How many have ever seen one? Those robots stock shelves, they do inventory. Well, they're starting to, and what they do, every time you bring a robot in, obviously you eliminate a job. And so they're looking to expand it. It says this, the 6-foot-tall Bossa Nova devices, equipped with 15 cameras each, roam aisles and send alerts to store employees. Handheld devices when items are out of stock, helping to solve a vexing problem that costs retailers nearly $1 trillion annually, according to the researcher group IHL. In addition to scanning shelves, Walmart already has a whole host of robots doing such things as scrubbing floors, unloading trucks, and gathering grocery orders. It says today Walmart is the largest employer in the United States by a wide margin, and they're actually going to be testing a new employer structure which is intended to cut down the size of its store management staff. What that means is they're going to train a robot with AI to do managerial skills. That's pretty scary. It says, but these coming changes will ultimately mean a lot more robot workers and a lot less human workers. So according to one study, a whopping 45% of our current jobs can be automated by robots. Unfortunately, the job losses are just going to keep accelerating. In fact, it's being projected that approximately 20 million manufacturing jobs around the globe will be taken over by robots by the year 2030. How many of you know we're going to be out of here by then? How many want to be out of here by then? All right. Robots could take over 20 million by that year. According to the study from Oxford Economics, within the next 11 years, there could be 14 million robots put to work in China alone, and they will lead the world. China will be the one that leads it. And as wealthy executives lay off low-wage workers in staggering numbers, that will make the growing gap between the rich and the poor even worse. But if millions of men and women can't feed their families because they don't have jobs, that will create the sort of social nightmare that we can't even imagine right now. That's something that all of the 2020 presidential candidates should be talking about, because this is a crisis that is spinning out of control and it's getting worse with each passing day. But how many are talking about it? Zip, none of them. They're not talking about anything happening in the future, as a matter of fact. Their future is just beating Donald Trump. Here's another one for you. This is the end of privacy. This is kind of really scary. If you're, now not for me, but for most people, if you're worrying about privacy, it should be scary. A new app reveals your name info with snap of a photo. So there's a new app out right now, and here's the way the app works. The app, if somebody's walking down the street, say you're in New York, you see somebody walking down the street and you take a picture of them. This app will access everything about them. It'll tell you their name, it'll tell you where they live, their address, it'll tell you anything that they've revealed. Let me tell you how it's going to do it. According to the Times, New York Times, this human rights violation app works by comparing a photo snapped to a database, now listen, of more than 3 billion pictures that Clearview, that's the name of the app, says it is scrapped off of Facebook, Venmo, YouTube, and other sites. So here's the deal. Anything you've ever put on YouTube, any picture you've ever put on, your family, you, anything you've done, they have access to that. And so if somebody's coming down the road and you don't know them and you take their picture or they take your picture, they can get every single photo they want of you. Now obviously police departments are using it first, but you know that consumers are going to want this. Let me give you a little analogy of how vast this is. 3 billion pictures they have. So it serves up matches along with links to the sites where those database photos originally appeared. A name might easily be unearthed, and from there other information can be dug up online. So the size of the Clearview database dwarfs others in use by law enforcement right now. The FBI's own database, which taps passports and driver's license photos, is one of the largest in the world. It has over 641 million images of U.S. citizens. They have 3 billion images of U.S. citizens. So this app currently isn't available to the public, but the Times said police officers and Clearview investors will think it will be in the very near future. So that's where it's going. The internet and our technology is racing. So I did a little bit of studying and came up with a chart, but before I give it to you, I want to give you this. It's another one. Internet of Things predictions for 2020. The Internet of Things has truly become a worldwide phenomenon, with Gartner predicting that that's one of the predictors of Internet things, that the enterprise and autonomous lot markets will grow to 5.8 billion endpoints in 2020. 5 billion end users. That's pretty shocking since we only have close to about 8 billion people on the planet. And it's a 21% increase since 2019. So what they're talking about, the first thing that's going to happen is we're going to start seeing a larger emergence of smart cities. Now, if you know what a smart city is, everything is connected. It is totally automated. You walk in your house and your lights come on because of something electronic, something that's internet. Your TV is hooked to the internet. Your computers are hooked to the internet. Your coffee pot's hooked to the internet. Your microwave's hooked to the internet. Your lights are hooked to the internet. Your car gets turned on by an internet queue. And so it's a smart city. And you're in a database in that city. What will it do? It'll prevent any type of theft in that city. You'll be totally safe from any type of crime. But on the same hand, you'll be giving up all of your privacy. So that is happening. And we already have smart cities, a lot of them in California, go figure. But it's happening quite a bit around the country, and it's going to continue to happen. So what I did is I started to think about all the information that's pushed through the internet daily. And I realized the scripture verse in Daniel chapter 12, it says one of the signs of the end is that knowledge will increase and they'll be traveling to and fro. So I've given lots of analogies on how knowledge has increased, but I think this is pretty shocking. We never put it up this way, so I'm going to do it for you. I did this research and here's what I found. Actually, I found this and then Shad sent this to me. Let me show you this. If we can get that background the right way, because it's kind of there you go, thank you. Globally, 3 trillion minutes, that's 5 million years of video content, will come across the internet each month by 2022. That's 5 million years of internet use. That's 1.1 million minutes of video streamed or downloaded every second. I think you gave it to me, as a matter of fact. That's streamed or downloaded every second. Can you imagine? We are in an information overload. And so what Daniel talked about is absolutely happening. Then I want to bring you to another technological advance that I think is one of the most amazing things that's happened, and actually one of the most anti-biblical thing that's happening. So this is does anybody know what that is? Tower of Babel. Listen, new translator apps and the Tower of Babel prophecy. Between Thanksgiving and Christmas, you might have seen a commercial for the Microsoft Translator. How many of you saw that? In it, Microsoft touts the new technology for instant language translation. A little girl sees her mom talking to overseas business partners. The mom speaks English and her partners hear her in Japanese. They respond in Japanese and she hears them in English. When the opportunity presents itself, the little girl uses her mother's device in an attempt to speak to reindeer, asking questions such as how reindeer fly and what Santa's sleigh is made of. It kind of sounds innocuous and kind of like fun, but it's not. Listen why. With Microsoft Translator, you get an instant translation of 60 foreign languages. But amazing as that is, Microsoft Translator isn't even the most used translator application. That horror belongs to, and honor belongs to iTranslate. The iTranslate app will translate text, websites, and voice-to-voice conversations in over 160 languages. A generation ago, technology like Microsoft Translator would be astounding the world. But if you're like most people today, you take it for granted. We've come to expect these kinds of breakthroughs. So why is this one any different? Well, this is why it's different, because what I'm showing you is the Tower of Babel. The people became one. And as they became one, they had one language, and they got together and they built a tower. And God said, they're one, and they'll imagine anything. We must destroy that tower. And he confounded their languages. The reason why we have many languages today is because God wanted to prevent people from becoming one and doing things against him. And so we know the Antichrist system is going to be a one world system. They're going to have, and I've talked about this for years, they're going to have one religion. We already see that happening, the ecumenicism that's happening. They're going to be globally united under one government. We know the Antichrist is going to do that. And they're going to have one economy. We already see that happening with Bitcoins, and we see it happening with cryptocurrencies and cashless societies. Little did I think that they would have one language, but they do. So what I did is I downloaded the app for you. So I speak several different languages, some well, some not so well. So what I want to do is I want to speak something into this in that language, and I'll let you hear it. So I'm going to speak something in Spanish, and I'm going to let you hear it in English. You ready? Okay. Uno de mis hermanos es mayor que yo. Oh, I have to speak it to it. Uno de mis hermanos es mayor que yo. Come on.
One of my brothers older than me.
One of my brothers is older than me. So I can go to somebody who speaks Spanish, I can put that, they could speak into this, I'll know exactly what they're saying. Now it seems convenient, of course I think of the ramifications of that, all those years of people learning languages out the window. You don't need any translators at the UN anymore, and they have hundreds of them. And it makes the world one. Remember, the Antichrist is going to lead the world armies. How's he going to command all of those different languages? Very easily. The technology is right there, right now. So when we see things that are happening like this, I look at it prophetically and I think, man, this is right down the line what prophecy says. Pretty amazing app. I'm going to use it when I go to Greece. Even though I know a little Greek, I'm going to use it when I go to Greece because it's going to be so much more facilitating if I want to talk to someone. But think about in the larger application when we talk about an Antichrist heralding and marshaling the entire world. Let me give you a couple more things that are prophecy. And again, these things are being missed by a lot of people, but I want to give it to you. So I've told you about the Gog and Magog war. Everybody knows about the Gog and Magog war. Ezekiel 38 and 39 could happen, possibly, and should happen before the rapture. So you may see that war. That war talks about several nations. In Ezekiel, it talks about Gog and Magog, which is Russia, Gog, and Magog, the premier of Russia, the president of Russia, which would be Putin at this time, if that was the case. It talks about Togarmah, which is Turkey. It talks about Assyria, which is Syria. So it talks about two other nations that are there, and I'll tell you about that in a moment. So I was telling you probably 4 months ago that Turkey, Recep Erdogan, the prime minister there, and Russia have been making joint military exercises. First time ever. Turkey is a NATO ally. They're an ally of ours, North Atlantic Treaty Organization. They're there, part of that treaty organization after World War II, to prevent the Russian aggression from taking their land. This is the first time ever last year that they have actually agreed on anything and had any type of dealings with each other, Russia and Turkey. So you have Gog and Magog and Togarmah that have met together. Well, that's only a couple of those nations. Then you have Assyria. Well, that's Syria. We know that Russia and Turkey are both involved in Syria. They're both making statements. They're both meeting Syrian officials and Bashar al-Assad. So there's a meeting there. But Libya always threw me off. Libya was always there, and Libya was like Muammar Gaddafi. He got extricated and killed by his own people, and now there's tribal leaders all over Libya. Libya's in northern Africa. It has a pretty good area, pretty good size, a pretty good army. Well, Turkish leader Recep Erdogan this week said he's going to move into Italy or to Libya, and he's going to start to try to settle everything in that area. What he's trying to do is he's wooing some of the tribal leaders that are stronger. He's going to take over Libya. He's going to at least have an influence. I don't mean control it in a sense where he's going to conquer it. He's going to have an influence, and that, my friends, has never happened since the 3,700 years that Ezekiel gave us that prophecy. Ever. It happens this week. I'm amazed that churches aren't screaming this to people and telling them, listen, the end times is here. We're very, very close. I don't know the day, I don't know the hour, but I'm telling you, there's things that I'm seeing that I've never seen before. How many are with me on it? So Erdogan is doing that. Now let me give you a couple other things as we go on. Jesus said that morals would decline, the love of many would wax cold. Anybody know who this is? Franklin Graham. I know Franklin Graham. I was supposed to ride into Bryant Denny Stadium with him on a motorcycle that got canceled years ago. He's a great man. As a matter of fact, he's stronger, and I'm going to tell you this, theologically, he's stronger than his father was. He is extremely down the line theologically. His father was a great man, but he's very much more theological than he was. So LGBTQ plus campaigners want Franklin Graham's UK tour canceled. So LGBT, whatever, activists in Sheffield are trying to have Franklin Graham's upcoming UK tour canceled. The 8-day tour gets underway in Glasgow on May 30th and will visit cities across mainly England with one stop in Wales before wrapping up at the O2 Arena in London on October 4th. So what they've done is they sent a letter, the LGBTQ plus community, sent a letter to the Sheffield City Trust, which runs the venue, saying that Graham should not be welcomed in the city. Now, here's the deal. England, Great Britain, is a democracy. Great Britain has a parliament. They have something called free speech. How many of you know what that is? Just like we do. So they're actually saying that they want to stop somebody from having free speech. That's absolutely unbelievable to me. It's unconscionable to me that you'd even hear something like that. We know in American colleges right now that they have banned conservatives from coming and doing commencement exercises. You won't see any conservatives there. That is a breach on free speech. My question is, where's the ACLU when you need them? Because we should be able to have free speech. That's exactly what's happening in England. England has a huge Muslim population, and they're trying to thwart the fact, and by the way, Muslims, that they're not trying to get you. By the way, Muslims are against homosexuality. It's not the Muslims this time. Now it's the LGBTQ plus community. So we're watching some things really happen that our founding fathers and even parliamentary fathers would roll in their graves for, because they're eliminating free speech. Can you imagine? His father, Billy Graham, did massive campaigns in England, massive campaigns. I think last time I heard there were somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 million people who had given their hearts to the Lord under his campaigns in England. And so now they're saying we're going to shut that whole thing down. We know that Europe is post-Christian, and we're watching it happen again. So let me give you a couple more. And I'm going to say something really strong. It's going out on YouTube. I'm going to get a lot of comments on it, and I'm going to tell you right now, I don't care. I'm just going to be honest with you, because this is probably going to be one of the stronger things I've said. It says this. It says, and that's a house that you'll know in a second. Democrats want to block a law that would ban sex change operations for children in Florida. Meanwhile, John Harris Miller, a policy director with Equality Florida, an LGBTQ activist group, described Sabatini's bill, that's the representative put it to Congress in Florida, and its Senate version as a clear attack on some of our state's most vulnerable youth. Children with gender identity issues are certainly vulnerable, but not in the way Harris suggests. Florida State Representative Anthony Sabatini, he's a Republican from Lakeland, was appalled to learn that in an article published on Thursday, NBC News described a series of bills that he and his colleagues recently filed as anti-gay. They are not anti-gay at all, he said. In fact, none of these bills have anything to do with gay and lesbian issues, Sabatini told The Blaze in a phone interview on Friday. Now listen, because you're going to hear some words that you probably never heard before. Sabatini said he designed the Vulnerable Child Protection Act to keep children safe and prevent the Texas custody battle over a 7-year-old boy whose mother claims is a transgender girl from playing out in Florida. His bill prohibits doctors from performing, here's the laundry list, surgeries that sterilize, including castration, vasectomy, hysterectomy, oophorectomy. Does anybody know what that is? An oophorectomy is removal of the ovaries. Metodoidplasty, that's the changing of a male sex organ. Orchiotectomy, that's also castration. Penectomy, it's just what it sounds like. Phalloplasty, same thing. And vaginoplasty. On minors, as well as injecting under Sabatini's law, any medical professional who performs these procedures on a minor could be charged with a felony, as well as injecting them with puberty blockers. So they can be charged with a felony. Democrats and activists oppose the bill vehemently. At least 2 Florida Democrat lawmakers oppose the Vulnerable Child Protection Act. Democrat State Representative Carlos G. Smith of Central Florida said Sabatini's bill and others amounted to being kicked in the gut by his colleagues. I'm so utterly offended and disappointed. So here's what I'm going to say. It's going to get me in a lot of trouble, and I really, 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 really don't care. If you are a Democrat and you are a Christian, you have an oxymoron going on in your life. If you are a Democrat, the Democratic Party is not what your father's party was. It's not what your grandfather's party was. The Democrats believe in abortion. The Democrats believe in killing a child before it comes out of the mother's womb. The Democrats believe in altering children's sex before they even have an opportunity to formulate their own thoughts on it. The Democrats are extremely pro-gay. If you're a Democrat and you're a Christian, question your Christianity. Now, I know people are going to write to me. I really don't care. You're not going to change my mind, because the Democratic Party is not what you think it is. It is a tool of Satan himself. And he is doing something to undermine everything in America. And sooner or later, somebody's got to stand up and talk about it. Because now, I'm not talking about individuals. There may be some individual Democrats that are great. But I don't know how you can be great and stay in that party. I don't know how you can do it. It's just impossible for me to understand. I can't wrap my head around it, especially if somebody says they're a Christian. So you need to really understand, you're not allegiant to a party. You're allegiant to God. The Republicans start doing those things, I'd be the first one off. Come on, somebody say amen. Write to me. I can't wait to tell you what I think. Here you go. This is a problem. Anybody know who that is? That's Pope Benedict. Now, let me just tell you why it's a problem. I grew up Roman Catholic. In Roman Catholicism, the Pope is the vicar of Christ. He sits on the papal throne. He is infallible. That means he can't make an error. And so no one disagrees with him because he can't make an error. He's the voice of Christ. So when I grew up, we knew about the Western Schism. You may not know about it, but we knew about it. We had to study it. There was a time, about 1309 to 1376 AD, where there were two popes. There was a pope in Avignon in France, and there was a pope in Constantinople. It was splitting. The church was split. It was Catholic, but it was splitting. So it split the church. You had priests that went this side. You had priests that went that side. They had ecumenical councils. They didn't know what to do, which one was the authority, which one was not. So they decided neither one of them were. So they elected a third pope. And so at one time they had three popes. Ironically, the third pope they elected was called Benedict XIII. But this Benedict is the one that was just deposed. Now, I'm going to say another thing that's probably going to get me in trouble with our Catholic listeners. But when a pope gets old and senile, it used to be this way, they fed him a glass meatball. What do I mean by that? They poisoned him. A pope never would be senile in office because he's the voice of Christ. And so you wouldn't have a senile pope telling you things from the papal throne. And they will never tell you that, but it's common knowledge that popes are found dead all the time because of that. So they did something historical by not killing Pope Benedict. They stuck him away. And so in essence, you have two popes. You're not the vicar of Christ, and then all of a sudden, you're not the vicar of Christ. It doesn't work that way. If you are always the voice of Christ. So listen to this article. Massimo Faglioli, a theologian at Villanova University in the United States, called it a serious breach by the former pope, who vowed unconditional reverence and obedience to his successor. In other words, when he left and they gave him his life, here's what he said. I don't know the exact words, but it's something probably like this. I know you're going to kill me. He's probably thinking to himself, I promise you I'll never say anything against this pope. I will go away and y'all will shut up. You won't hear a thing from me. Now, I'm sure he didn't say that to anybody, but I promise you that's what he's thinking. But I think he did agree that he would not say anything. How many are still following me? So former Pope Benedict, in a new book written with a conservative cardinal, defends priestly celibacy in the Catholic Church in what appears to be a strategically timed appeal to Pope Francis to not change the rules. So here's the deal. Pope Francis, now in Argentina, he has a problem. He has a lack of priests, and a lot of the people that are taking over the churches are laymen who are married. So he is now going to go away with the celibacy clause, which they've had for thousands of years, saying a priest cannot be married, and he's going to allow it in Argentina. So this Pope Benedict, who said, I'm never going to say a thing, writes a book and disagrees with this pope. So if you don't think the Catholic Church is going to split down the middle, it is going to split down the middle. This is going to be a huge rift in the Catholic Church. And again, when we're talking about a one world religion, we're talking about somebody coming in and picking up all these pieces. Let me give you this one. This is happening in Iran. You still with me in the news? Some interesting in the news, isn't it? Iranian women defy the mullahs. Western feminists nowhere in sight. In October 1979, in a rare interview with Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, the late Italian journalist Orlana Falassi charged that the veil that they wear, symbolic of the segregation into which the Islamic Revolution had cast women, he says, our customs, Khomeini answered, are none of your business. If you do not like the Islamic dress, you're not obliged to wear it, because Islamic dress is good and proper for young women. That's very kind of you, Falassi said. She's a Muslim, by the way. And since you said so, I'm going to take off this stupid medieval rag right now. Falassi removed her veil and left the room without saying another word. Iranian women emulating Felici are now leading protests against the regime. The article goes on to say this: the Iranian women are up in arms. What happened is in 1979, they went from a Western type of government in Iran. They were pretty much like us. They went for a Western type of government. We know the Shah of Iran wore suits. He was westernized. He was so westernized that we actually gave him a printing press to print $100 bills. Trust me. And so he was very westernized. He was an ally. Iran was one of our biggest allies until the rebellion came. Remember, they took they took 256 hostages. I remember that. Blindfolded them. Well, that was an Ayatollah taking over. The Ayatollah Khomeini now runs Iran. Nothing's done. Rouhani doesn't do anything unless he talks to the Ayatollah. Soleimani, who was the butcher of Iran, was taking his orders directly from the Ayatollah. So what happened was they instantly, in 1979, once they became an Islamic state, they instantly said every one of these women that were there in Iran had to wear the hijab and had to wear a veil. They had to stop driving cars at that time. If they were in school, they were pulled out of school. If they were in college, they were pulled out of college. Many of them lost their jobs. Well, they were doing that because they would be killed going against Sharia law. And so recently what's happening is the women are in an uprising. They are going against the mullahs and the Ayatollah. They're going against it. They're refusing to step on American flags. They're refusing to step on Israeli flags. They're saying you've just invented them as being our enemies, but you're our enemy. And so the women are rising up. Well, here's the deal that I think. Here's the thing that I see. So they're having a women's rights movement. So where are the feminists in America? Should they not be backing them? You never hear a single thing about it. And by the way, they've murdered women. They've put them in prison, and they've murdered them. Of the 1,500 people that were shot 2 weeks ago, protesters, 500 of them were women. And so you never hear any single thing about it. America is protecting Islam in spite of the fact that they're committing atrocities among their own people. All right, let me give you a couple other real heartwarming news. This is the coronavirus. How many of you have ever heard of this? 2 weeks ago, you wouldn't have. It wasn't there. So the United States has confirmed its first case of the virus. The patient is in isolation at the Providence Regional Medical Center in Everett, Washington. He's in his mid-30s and lives in Snohomish County, Washington, just north of Seattle. He arrived at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport on January 15th before any health screening for it's called the Wuhan virus that happened in China. It broke out in China in a market. And they didn't think it was going to be human to human, but it is. It's very, very contagious. What happens, and I'll just paraphrase what it's saying, what happens is you have flu-like symptoms, but it's deadly when you get it. And here's what's happened. So China, I just heard today, they're isolating millions of people in certain ones of their cities. When I read this yesterday, they were not doing that. Today they're isolating because it's spreading from Beijing to Shanghai. It's going all over China. But there are people that are getting on airplanes. And by the way, if you haven't figured it out, airplanes recycle their air. And so, and plus you have close proximity to others. All you have to do is be within 6 foot of someone sneezing, and you're going to get whatever virus they have, whether it's an airplane or a crowd. Churches too. So the thing is, it's been spreading. And so it's gone to the Philippines, it's gone to Argentina, I think it's gone to Australia, it's gone to America, it's going around the globe. They're calling it a virus that's similar, not similar, but that could be like the 1918 swine flu, which wiped out millions in Europe. And so if you want to use a biblical term, how about the word plague? And so we're watching it happen. By the way, as of 2 days ago, it went from just a couple of people to 222. Today, I think I heard it's 400 and some, 450. So this thing is multiplying as we speak. It's one of the big viruses that's hitting. And if they don't come up with something, it could possibly wipe out a bunch of people. So not something that you want to be warm and cozy about, but nonetheless, it is news. And I have to report it, right? Because I'm just a reporter. Here you go. So let me tell you another one. This one, let's see. I don't even know if I have this one in here, but I want to give, oh, I think I do. Let me give it to you right here. So, anybody know who that is? Greta Sundberg. She's at it again. Teen climate activist Greta Thunberg addressed the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland on Tuesday, tearing into the world leaders who she accused of fueling the flames of climate change with their inaction. She delivered opening remarks on a panel entitled How to Save the Planet, Averting a Climate Catastrophe. In her remarks, she told the gathered business, political, and NGO leaders that simple planting trees was not enough. It was a slap to President Trump because he just announced a couple of hours earlier that the U.S. was joining in an international initiative to plant 1 trillion trees. trees. Mr. Trump, in his opening address then in Davos, also said it was time to reject the warnings of prophets of doom and their predictions of the apocalypse. I love that. She said this: "Our house is on fire, your inaction is fueled by flames by the hour, and we're telling you to act as if you loved your children above all else." What does this girl have any knowledge of? Let me tell you what she has a knowledge of. Her mother is the real activist. She has a climate coach. She's been coached for the last 4 years on talking about climate change and using her little sweet personality to do so. It's a ruse, and it's trying to get people's emotions pulled in. And by the way, with President Trump, it's not working. So let me give you a little bit more as we go along. Let's give you this one. This one's an interesting one. It's right before the end of what I want to tell you. This one is a supermassive black hole. If you look there, right there, let me show you. This is looking into the Milky Way, our galaxy. Right there is a black hole surrounded by a white ring. A black hole is a spot, literally a hole, where all light and all matter gets sucked into it. That's in the center of our universe. Again, I don't want to give you an astronomy lesson, but our universe is, we are in the Milky Way. It's a spiral galaxy. It has arms. We're way down here. When you look up at night and you see that cloud in a clear night, you're looking into the cluster, the heart of the Milky Way. In the heart of the Milky Way is a black hole. That has just been discovered not too long ago. It's pulling everything in. These things are stars. That's gas that it's stripping off the edges of the stars. Those are entering into here. They're orbiting, and right now they're being sucked in. We've just discovered 6 of them that are being sucked in. And so what it's doing is it's going to take these stars. And by the way, those stars, some of them are 100 to 1,000 times bigger than our sun. And some of them are binary stars, and they're pulling them in. So scientists are saying, in NASA are saying, we don't understand what's going on. We don't understand the properties of it. We're just starting to look at it. We have our theories. And one scientist made it slip. He said something, I think, let me quote it. He said, creation staggers us. He didn't say evolution staggers us. He said creation staggers us. And you know what? He's absolutely right. You want to get staggered? You look at God's creation. All right, let me give you one last thing. By the way, it takes 26,000 light years for us to travel to the center. That's 26,000 years traveling at 186,000 miles per second. So how many of you know we're not going to get there soon? We're never going to get there. So one last one. You ready for this? Some of you, it's so weird news, so I'm going to give it to you. Anybody know what that is? That's an iguana. The National Weather Service has issued a warning for some Florida residents. Beware of falling iguanas. As temperatures in parts of the state dip this week, the cold-blooded lizards slow down or become motionless and can drop from the trees onto unsuspecting pedestrians below. And as a matter of fact, that's exactly what's happening. Iguanas are not indicative of Florida. They've come up from South America. And basically what's happening, they've invaded the interior Gulf Coast, and they're in Florida. So they come from Central and South America. They will go to sleep. Anything below 50 degrees will start their metabolism to go into hibernation stage. But the problem is that when they fall, what happens, Dr. Andy, and you touch them, what happens? You can get salmonella. And so as you get salmonella, it could be deadly. So obviously kids are running up to these iguanas that are not moving, touching them, and the Weather Service is warning them. So here's the deal. When you go home tonight, if you see an iguana, check your state, because there's none in Alabama. You're probably in Florida. That's in the news for tonight. I'm going to ask the ushers if they come forward.